As Israel-Hamas agreed a ceasefire deal, U.S. President Biden outlines 3 phases of breakthrough negotiation. Israel-Hamas Ceasefire Deal. United States President Joe Biden on Wednesday announced the successful negotiation of a ceasefire and hostage deal between Israel and Hamas, drawing curtains to over 15 months of conflict. The deal is structured in 3 phases, and it includes a complete ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, and the release of hostages, including Americans, in the first phase. While delivering remarks on reaching a ceasefire and hostage deal, Biden also threw light on the diplomatic effort involved. He noted the pressure from Israel and support from Washington, as well as a coalition of 20 nations that stood against attacks from the Houthis. The U.S. president said, "It's a very good afternoon because at long last, I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas. More than 15 months of terror for the hostages, their families, and the Israeli people, and more than 15 months of suffering by the innocent people of Gaza. Fighting in Gaza will stop, and soon the hostages will return home to their families." Further elaborating on details of the ceasefire deal, Biden said, "The deal is structured in 3 phases. Phase 1 will last 6 weeks. It includes a full and complete ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from all the populated areas of Gaza, and the release of a number of hostages held by Hamas, including women and the elderly and the wounded. And I'm proud to say Americans will be part of that hostage release in Phase 1 as well. The Vice President and I cannot wait to welcome them home. In exchange, Israel will release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, and during Phase 1, the Palestinians can also return to their neighbors in all areas of Gaza," he further stated. Biden also said that during the next 6 weeks, Israel will negotiate the necessary arrangements to get to Phase 2, which is a permanent end of the war. During the next 6 weeks, Israel will negotiate the necessary arrangements to get to Phase 2, which is a permanent end of the war. There are a number of details to negotiate to move from Phase 1 to Phase 2, but the plan says that if negotiations take longer than 6 weeks, the ceasefire will continue as long as the negotiations continue, he said. When Phase 2 begins, there will be an exchange for the release of the remaining living hostages, including male soldiers, and all remaining Israeli forces will be withdrawn from Gaza, and the temporary ceasefire will become permanent, Biden further stated. Giving details about the 3rd phase of the ceasefire deal, the U.S. president emphasized that as part of the final phase, any final remains of hostages who have been killed will be returned to their families and a major reconstruction plan for Gaza will begin. And finally, Phase 3, any final remains of hostages who have been killed will be returned to their families and a major reconstruction plan for Gaza will begin, Biden said. Those who have followed the negotiations can attest that the road to this deal has not been easy. I have worked in foreign policy for decades. This is one of the toughest negotiations that I have ever experienced. I have reached this point because of the pressure that Israel built on Hamas, backed by the U.S. The U.S. also organized a coalition of 20 countries to stand up to attacks by the Houthis, including their missile attacks in Israel. At the G20 in Delhi in September 2023, I rallied key countries behind a vision of an economic corridor from India across the Middle East to Europe. That vision can now become a reality, he further stated.